hoping that because I said, go eat first, now you'll be ready and riled up for me. First of all, as Mr. Eberline stated, this is Prezi, and so as we're going through this afternoon, if you just become so enthralled with it that you say, oh my God, I have to try this next week, I'll be available to talk to you about that afterwards. Plus, they have tutorials on the website. So as I was preparing for today, I thought about when I was pregnant, and clearly I thought about it because of, Tara. And what in particular came back to mind, because I reflected on a conversation we had about having children and that sort of thing, I thought about when I was told that from the time the child leaves the womb, that they embark on a journey of increased independence. And when I heard that, I thought, oh wow, yeah, that's true, because first you cut the umbilical, and then after that you nurse them, and then let them go, and then next you feed them, and then you don't have to feed them anymore. And so I said, okay, good, I'm ready for this, ready for this. So life is going on, and then he turns 2, and he starts saying no. And then I said, okay, I was ready for this. I got my books, and I read my books, and I handled it, and I did what the psychologist said to do, and I was prepared. Then he grew up. Then time went on, and he started that new phase, that phase of the lion. And I said, wait a minute, this is not something I'm used to. But again, I went, and I got my books, and I read, and I said, I'm ready for it, this is a phase. They say this happens at this age, I'm ready. I dealt with it. And then he got older. He is now 14. And now he's asking me to go to parties with girls. I was not ready. I was not ready for that part. I didn't get any book. I lied to you not. Just minutes before we started, he just texted me and asked me could he go to a party tomorrow night. And so for some reason, I thought about this as I was sitting back there. It came back to me when I was told that from the time they leave the womb, they embark on this journey of increased independence. And I thought, wow, I thought I knew what that meant, and I thought I was ready for that, and with every stage I realized there is another level of understanding. How does that all fit here today? Well, it makes me think about the journey that we have taken since August as a system in embracing and engaging in the comprehensive framework for effective instruction. And every time we dig into a piece of it, and we think, okay, I think I've got this part, we realize there's another piece of nuance to it that we want to go a little deeper in, right? And so at this point, everybody in the system has engaged with DQ4, Design Question 4, in some manner. A little fancy present. In some manner. Yeah, but even still, we realize we need to dig a little bit deeper because the way we all understand decision-making or generating and testing hypothesis may not all be the same. And so in order to establish a common language, we want to be sure that we dig deeper in together on the same journey at the same time. And so what I'm asking you to indulge in this afternoon is a simulation where you'll be the students and I'll be the teacher. And afterward, we'll reflect together. Really, you all reflect. This is really about you, not me. But we'll reflect on what the thinking was for me as the teacher as I answer this question for myself. What will I do to help students generate and test hypotheses about new knowledge? We're going to get into it very quickly because this is less about me and more about you. But very quickly wanted to point out the fact that when we're talking about generating and testing hypotheses, there's 6 different approaches we could take. There's a systems analysis approach where we look at systems and we determine how best to reorganize or how best to basically change the system for improvement. And there's a process for teaching students that. There's a process for teaching students how to solve problems. Another one for decision making. It's not, sometimes as adults we take for granted how simple it is to just say, oh, here are my choices, here's the decision, right? But we're going through a specific process where we'll have students, where you as the student really, I should say, will engage in evaluating established criteria to decide on a situation. You'll see what that is a little later. There's also historical investigation, which I'd like to say, while it clearly lends itself to social studies, it also lends itself to other disciplines as well, because it's about digging into the past to tell a story. And we know that we can dig into the past and tell a story in more than just social studies. There's experimental inquiry, which we'll get into that a little later, not today, and invention, which is something that we want to really graduate to as a system, and we will, but for today, we're going to focus on number 3, and that is decision making. Isn't that great how that does that? I know you all have seen this before, so just to bring it back as a reminder to talk about where we are. When we're talking about generating and testing hypotheses, first of all, let me back up. When we're thinking about planning our lessons, we think about, are we teaching new knowledge? And we're coming from this area, and we're talking about DQ2, design question 2. When we're thinking about extending and refining our knowledge, we're mostly thinking about design question 3. And then when we start talking about having students use the knowledge meaningfully in a real-world application, it's relevant, real-world, that kind of thing, we're talking about design question 4. Now, there are times, and I'm not going to stress you out today by going into this, but there are times when DQ4 can apply here as well, right? But it definitely applies here. So just to kind of get you to have a place to, or a bucket or a file cabinet or whatever word you use, to place all of this thinking in, it's when we're looking in this evaluate and create that we're talking about how to make what students have learned. So you know that part on the lesson plan framework where it talks about scholar cultivation and motivation and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to do that part with you all this afternoon because of time. But if I were going to do that, and if I were the teacher and you were really the students, I would take, this would be the opportunity for me to make the subject of mathematics real. And I'm going to be quiet for a few seconds so you can read that. Okay, this would be the opportunity that I would take to engage students in just a quick dialogue, about 2 to 3 minutes before we really dig into the lesson. To have them reflect on connecting their own interests to statistics and probability. And I would also share with them that the activity that we're engaging in is coming from real data that was just produced in the last year. And that will be a part of that 2 to 3 minute discussion. Is that clear what I'm saying to you right now about making that connection of learning the discipline and then getting ready to connect it to your real world? Okay. And just for your knowledge, I'm just pointing out that this is coming from a Common Core statistics and probability standard for high school. So now, are you ready to simulate? Okay. I'd like for someone to close read level 1, today's objective for us. Go ahead and tell us that in your own words. One brave soul. Yes, sir.
Looks like it means students are going to be looking at a set of data regarding what might happen if you enter various different career paths, 3 specifically, and then use that data to inform a possible decision.
Yes. Did you want to add? Thank you. Did you want to add? Okay, did everyone hear him clearly? Okay. So, right, we're going to evaluate some data today to make to go through the process of what it will be like for you to make a decision on your own when you graduate from high school. You're in school right now. Are you with me? Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. And so the first thing I need for us to do is I need for us to get our vocabulary word that we're going to be using mostly for today. So if you would, just take about 3.5 minutes to go ahead and do these 3 steps in your academic notebook or your vocabulary journal for the vocabulary word of expected value. Anybody need me to read it for them? Because the light is kind of, yes you do? Okay. Expected value, it's a noun. A predicted value of a variable calculated as the sum of all possible values, each multiplied by the probability of its occurrence. And so we set up, as we always do, class, you know, we always set up our journal in the 3 sections, and here we reword it for ourselves, and here we put a graphical representation of what it means for us.